So today's lesson is over solving equations with square roots. Before, when I did this lesson where we solved with square roots and with squares. And the reason I did it all in one lesson is because they're pretty much the same. They do the same steps. Step 1, 2, and 3 is the same with both of them. So I separated them since we don't have block schedules now. I probably could have left them alone. But I did separate them, make it easy for you. But I left the steps just so you realize that they're all the exact same steps. So whether it's a squared or a square root, you follow the same steps in solving those. So the biggest punchline of today, and I'm hoping you guys know this, but the biggest thing today is that to cancel out a square root, you need the exponent of 2. To cancel out a square root, you need a square. So hopefully this makes sense without even doing any algebra, where if I have the square root of one number is 7, hopefully you guys all know that's 49. The square root of 49 is 7. Most of you guys really wouldn't have to think about that. However, just to make sure you realize then that means all this, I can take the square of both sides. Cancels my square root. 7 squared is 49, so you end up with x is equal to 49. That's the punchline today. More difficult to get to that point. That's the new stuff. I'm hoping is not actually new. So I broke it down into these 3 steps. The first step is you need to get either the square or the square root. So for our purposes, we need to get the square root all by itself. So whatever is outside your square root, we need to get that. Once you have the square root all by itself, then we cancel the square root. We use a square, just like I said. The 2.5, we're going to talk about that on Monday with the next lesson. And the last step, now all you need to do is solve for x. And again, make 2 equations. That part is what we're going to do on Monday. So, get rid of everything outside the square root, cancel the square root, and then solve for x. Those are the only steps. So, per usual, I try to ease into this a little bit. So these first ones, we don't have a step 1. So we already have the square root all by itself. So we have the square root all by itself. Before we do anything inside the square root, we have to get rid of the square root. And I kind of like the square root symbol because it's kind of like a little box or a roof or however we look at it, where we can't do anything in there until we get rid of it. You can't get inside the box until you get rid of that box. Number 1 is I need to square both sides. Box, so all I'm left with is x plus 2. 8 squared is 64. Now, if you're someone that's thinking ahead and you're thinking you need a plus or a minus sign, that's not today. That's what we'll do on Monday. You only need a plus or minus sign if you cancel a square. We cancel a square. We use squares, but we cancel the square root. So we'll talk more about that on Monday, but you do not need a plus or minus. The third step, x. So we subtract 2 from both sides. I get x is equal to 62. Number 2, same thing. We have itself already, so we need to cancel that before we do anything else. So you both sides. 11 squared is 121, and then we're left with it. So again, I would never say that this math is easy by any means. There are students with this. I get it. It's not the easiest thing ever. However, the only part is taking the squared. Everything else is solving normal equations, solving a 2-step equation. We've been doing this all year. You did it all year last year. Before that as well. So add 5 to both sides. 121 plus 5 is 126. Then divide both sides by 2. You get x is equal to 63, I think. Do that to make sure. Perfect. So I'll give you a little bit of time to go ahead and do number 3 and 4 on your own. Shouldn't take a whole lot of time. We'll move on to the next ones. All right, my 2 answers are up there. Again, the square root is all by itself. So you'll just cancel that. Taking the square of both sides. That was what I was going to say. Hopefully this goes without saying, but just in case, remember, just like any other solving problem we have, you can take your answer and plug that back in to double check your work. 4 times 25 is 100. The square root of 100 is 10. 3 times 14 is 42. 42 plus 7 is 49. The square root of 49 is 7. And actually, you can do that calculator pretty quickly. Again, I know a lot of people don't do that, but we're getting close to the end of the semester, and if you need that grade and you need your grade to go up, whether it's from a 58% to a 60 or whether it's an 89 to a 90, that's not a bad idea to do. So the next ones are, as you would assume, just we're going to start with the opposite. So now the only thing inside the square root is the x, but there's stuff outside that we have to do first. So now we are doing step 1. So step 1, we have to get square root all by itself. And it's really similar. You probably already heard me almost say absolute value. Back when we did absolute values and we had to make 2 equations, remember I always said we have to get that absolute value all by itself first. It's no different with this one. So for this one, number 5, the first thing you do both sides by 2. That gives you, we didn't do anything with square root yet. 18 divided by 2 is 9. That was where we're at step 2. So now we have the square root all by itself. Now cancel that with step 2. You square both sides. Getting x is equal to 81. Again, you could plug that back in and check. Square root of 81 is 9. 2 times 9 is 18. We'll stop there for lunch, but again, that's all there is to it. Step 1, the square root all by itself. Step 2, cancel the square root just like we did. And then later we're going to do the other ones where now we still solve for x, and there's a couple extra steps after that. But that's all there is to it. So like I said, again, the biggest thing is you have to get that square root by itself. Once you get it by itself, you can cancel it. And eventually then we'll be able to solve whatever's left. And that'll be in a couple problems here. Same thing, number 6. We can't take this. We can't cancel the square root yet. We have to subtract the 10. So we have the square root is equal. The square root of x is equal to 5. Now, since the square root of itself, now you can take both sides and square them. So x is equal to 25. And number 7, this one has 2 parts to it, but again, it's the same concept. We need to get that square root by itself. So the first thing we have to do is get rid of this 2. If you're not sure which one to get rid of first, the 3 or the 2, it's the same thing as if it was just 3x minus 2 is equal to 19. Then hopefully you guys know that's where you add the 2. If to add the 2 to both sides. 19 plus 2 is 21. Then that's 3 multiplied by the square root. Make sure you remember that. Some people subtract 3. So that's the square root of x is equal to 7. This seems like it's pretty straightforward, but I still have people on the test every year that they'll put this as their, they'll get to this step, and then they'll put x is equal to 7 for their answer. Well, no, not quite. It's the square root of x is equal to 7. So you have to square both to get your answer. Whenever that pops up. The answer is 49. It'll pop up. Cool. So the next one is the first one, and I guess I have 2 of them like this, but this next one's the first one where you have to do both. You have some things inside your square root and some things outside your square root. Now again, I'm hoping you guys all look and you're like, yeah, this is super easy. But without fail, some students get confused because there is 2 different things. There's something outside, something inside, and you have to do the order specifically. So this one, you have to get the square root all by itself. So we got to get rid of that 3. So just like number 7, we have to divide by 3. Same thing with this one. We have the square root of x plus 4 is equal to 7. Now that that's itself, now we can cancel it. But again, there's some people that forget and they try to subtract 4. You cannot do anything inside that square root until you cancel it. So we have x plus 4 is equal to
7 squared is 49. Now that the square root is done, now we can simplify, and now we can get that x by itself. So subtract 4, we get x is equal to 45. And again, you could plug that back in. 45 plus 4 is 49. The square root of 49 is 7. 3 times 7 is 21. Again, there's more to this one. But it's the same thing. Get rid of everything that's outside the square roots. All myself, we'll square both sides, and then we'll solve what is left, the 2x minus 4. It's funny, I've never had this big of a problem with it lagging. Oh, there we go. Aha! Go along with this, but don't make it harder than it is. Get rid of all the stuff that's outside your square root. So the 6. The 5 then we can get rid of. So divide both sides by 5. We have the square root of 2x minus 4 is equal to 8. Out from outside the square root, we have the square root by itself. Now is where we can square both sides. Now is where we can cancel that square root. So square both sides, that cancels. With 2x minus 4 is equal to 64. And now we just have a normal two-step equation that you guys have been doing at least. Add 4 to both sides. 2x is equal to 68. Both sides by 2. I get my x is equal to 34. Time left. So it is up to you where if you would rather skip the you-do part and go ahead and do your win homework check, that's up to you. Don't come and tell you actually know how to do it if that's the case, because if you should do these. But the punchline is make sure with your win homework check, you've got to do that before you leave class today. So whatever that means, if you want to wait till the last 10 minutes, that's up to you. But if you are in class today and you don't do it by the time you leave, that's usually when I give you a 0 and I take you off so you can't make that up. Again, I don't want to be mean with that, but the only thing I make you do in class, or the only thing I don't let you hand in late is when I give you 20 or 30 minutes to do stuff in class. I will go over the you-do. I'll put the answers up here in a second. Again, from there, it's up to you. So not to rush you, but if it helps, my answers are up there. And please double check your answers. If you still make mistakes, we'll still help you out. But try to make sure you have selected the correct ones before you submit.